just to give us some type of idea of what the 4% is. It doesn't have to be exact. It's going to be in the ballpark.
I'm not understanding. You're talking about the first 3 quarters.
I'm sorry, not the first 3 quarters. I mean well, we're almost at the end of the second quarter of the fiscal year. So we have the first 2 quarters. If we basically double what our fees have been, and then just add 4, and then just double, just as an estimate, as a ballpark, and then just double it with the 4%, so we know how much additional revenue we're bringing in for that 4% increase.
Well, my intent was to do how we stood with FY20, and then we can do like what you're talking about, but because right now we're only halfway through December, so we don't have the numbers, for December. So we usually go on fiscal year. So, I mean, I could take the FY20 and multiply it times the factor, and then we could come out with what we're looking at for the revenue.
So you're not able to do that? I'm sorry.
Oh, and then we can see, by quarter, we can compare it to the first quarter of, FY20 to FY21. We can do different numbers, but right now we're just guessing because I don't have the numbers and neither does Frank.
Yeah, well, the reason why, I'm sorry. The reason why I'm asking is, I understand that this is, and I understand for the increase to be in line with other cities and so forth, and I get that part. But I was just wondering if we also, when you guys look back at the numbers and so forth, would you be able to, I know that, utilities that we charge, when utilities do something with the pole, or if there's a funeral service or something, I mean, it's services idea just based on a prior year. It could be, doesn't have to be, it could be 2019, it doesn't have to be 2020. How many businesses and or residents are West Haven and how many are outside of West Haven? So we have an idea in terms of, it's like 80% of this revenue generated by outside the city through utilities, et cetera, or is it a lot of resident because of funerals, et cetera? Is there any way that we can proportion that? And there's a reason for that. So
I'm not understanding. Are you asking about like if there's a detail for a funeral? Because
No.
What I'm talking about is if somebody's doing, like I said, UI, the gas company,
Right.
any work like that, that in other words requires the police, which a lot of them
Right.
do because we have to have safety, So once again, that's what I was looking at for administrative, or if we have to, So is that what you're talking about? She said something.
No, I understand that your administrative cost for everything you said, but there's also times that either individuals or whatever, if they have a party, they have a funeral, whatever, they basically hire, additional police for security or whatever. And I imagine that must be a very, very small proportion of, I don't know if it's 100, whatever the number happens to be of the administrative fee. It must be a very, very small number. So I'd be interested to know what that might be. And the reason why I'm asking this question, just so you can kind of know where I'm going, is I think we have an opportunity to perhaps, once you find out what the number is, and also we have an idea that, 80%, 90% of this is really for businesses or utilities that are outside West Haven, and there's a small proportion of people and or businesses that are West Haven. It would be nice to kind of possibly restructure this, that if you have, going from 18 to 22%, maybe, and I'm being arbitrary here because I don't have the numbers, that maybe for out of town or out of state businesses, utilities or whatever, they're charged at 22%, and West Haven residents or West Haven businesses might be charged 19% or whatever. And that's why I'm curious to know, it's an opportunity to kind of show some goodwill to people that are already paying. And I know this isn't a tax, but fees, you're still taking money out of your wallet. It's just a good opportunity if we can, knowing that the brunt may be shared by outside West Haven, that it's not really impacting the residents, or maybe it doesn't need to. For the amount of time that individuals or small businesses in West Haven use an outside police person, it's minimal. So why even bother charging it or charging them the full 22%? I think especially since, and we all know that, we all got our assessments and we'll get in parity with the mill increase and so forth, but it's a nice opportunity to consider, what? We're going to raise it to 18 or 22%, but only for utilities, businesses outside of West Haven, and it still might cover your revenue projection. And so I'm hoping that you guys might consider that, because it would be, it would not only be a good gesture, but I think it's the right thing to do. That was my rationale for that.
I don't know if Frank wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I don't think that's even feasible. I mean, I know police departments in a lot of towns, unless you're willing to hire extra people to just go through and figure out different rates for different people on different days, it's not feasible. It's easier to set a flat rate. If you need a cop, here's what you're going to get charged.
No, I guess what I'm saying, Frank, is I'm talking about two flat rates. It's like if the person lives in West Haven, has a business in West Haven, you pay this rate. If the person or the company lives outside West Haven, it's that rate. It's not really, I don't think, with all respect, it's that complicated. I just think it's a matter of, giving West Haven residents and giving West Haven businesses a break if we can. It's not like we're asking for a lot of tiers. We're asking for West Haven, not West Haven. And that's really what I'm looking at.
And yeah, I understand what you're looking for. I've never heard it done that way.
Well, a little bit of, it's always the first time.
Right? It's true. And if we had the staff, we could do anything we want, but
Yeah, Councilor Cohen,
we're operating with limited staff, trying to keep the lights on and the wheels on the bus. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just don't have the capacity to try to break that out at this point. But I can certainly define the detail. There's certainly, no issue there. I'll see if I can track down who we've billed in the past year and try to put something together for you.
Well, the thing, Frank, for all I know, it could be very little impact on West Haven residents anyway. I'm just thinking that I didn't realize it was that difficult to divide into two, but okay. Well, I appreciate the responses. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Frank. Do appreciate it. I thought it was a decent idea, but oh well. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Frank, can I just ask a clarifying question, just so that there's a better understanding? This fee, this 18% that we want to raise to 22%. I mean, is the city getting rich off of it? I mean, are our banks getting full? Or is it really just covering the basic costs of what it does for our men and women on the police force to go out there for an extra duty job? And essentially, I mean, I know some of it is not just, and Councilman Hamilton, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just them out there directing traffic. We have had businesses in the city where they go into, I don't know if we call it a nightclub, but there are businesses where they've gone into establishments where they are providing extra security and are there to keep it safe. So I don't believe that the fee is actually, we're not necessarily upcharging to get rich off of this. Correct? Or not get rich, but it's not really this huge revenue generator. I mean, I don't know.
No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, we're not trying to gouge any of the businesses. We're not layering huge amounts on top of this. I did speak to Michael Milone about this last week, and even the rate that they're going to, he indicated that it's lower than some of the other towns in the area. So certainly it's not a money-making scheme.
And I hope you know that I wasn't trying to allude that it was, but my thought is that it's not this idea that you hire a cop and we're paying the cop, $45 an hour, but we're charging the establishment $85. So we're making
That's
double
correct.
the money.
That's correct.
That is kind of what I thought. But I just wanted to make it clear for those who might be watching this or watching it later that they understood exactly what it would be for. Are there any other questions, Councilman Bruno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mayor Rossi. I agree with the increased charges. I just had a quick question, and that is this. Does this money keep PD?
Councilman Bruno, you're having connection issues. If you're speaking, you seem frozen.
Okay, how about now? Any better?
Yes.
So my question was, thank you, Mayor. My question was, does this money go to the city? This percentage, does it go to the PD?
So the question, Councilwoman Hosky, was, does the money go to the city? Oh, you heard it? Okay, the city.
Yes, I was going to, thank you. I was going to make sure that Frank or the mayor heard it. He's asking if the money goes directly to the city or the West Haven PD.
Yes, this increased fee would come to the city.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify as well, you know, when I read the mayor's well thought out memo here, you know, there's possibility underlying that it could go up to 25% next year. And all I'm basically saying is, you know what, I don't know what the arbitrary fees increases would be if indeed, you know, residents or whatever would stay at 18% or go to 20%, and maybe other businesses go up to 24 versus 22. And I do understand that all of the revenue is going to the city. I just strongly believe that it was an opportunity to, even it was the slightest break. And I know that, and I know, and I think we're all on the same page here. No one likes to pay more money for anything. We all get that. And in the beginning of my term, we basically had a vote on parking permits. Yeah, it was like $10 more. I'm not parking I'm blanking out here for permits. All I'm basically saying is I looked at it as an opportunity. I thought it was easy enough to do. If, hey, city residents, city business, you're this much, that much. I don't necessarily, with respect, see it as a major problem. And if at the end of the day, that residents only pay 20 and outside business pay 24, then you still end up with the same pot of gold, if you will, at the end. So I do feel it's an opportunity that would be lost. And because we don't have the numbers in front of us, understandably so, with all respect, I understand why. I think it's unfortunate. I think that I would hope that it would be considered at some point. I really do. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. I appreciate that. Councilwoman Hamilton?
Frank, since we're talking about fees, and I think Councilwoman Hosky brought this up, I was just wondering, how long does it take after an event or after, you know, these police officers are doing extra duty, how long does it take us to bill? And the reason why I'm asking is because we know of companies that went out of business before we were able to even, they just left town. And we don't think that we got the revenue.
As far as I know, we send the bills out to the contractors and to the companies as soon as we get the information from the police department.
And is there any kind of like follow-up, like if it's taken too long? Because the longer that it goes, people seem to forget the service and they put us in, you know, on the back burner. Is there any kind of follow-up on like delinquent bills?
At some point, I would think yes, because the special duty fund is part of the city audit at the end of the year. So at some time, that information does need to be reconciled. Now, I don't know how often that's being done, whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually. But once the bill goes out, I honestly don't know if anyone ever chases it back down again.
Thank you.
Councilor Hamilton,
Yes.
Lee Tiernan, I can tell you that there's a woman in Frank's office who administers the police billing. The activity is much better than it used to be, and she's on top of it very quickly. And if she has any delinquencies of significance, we meet and talk about various methodologies to facilitate collection. The only outstanding ones that are slipping through in the last year, 18 months that I'm aware of, have to do with disputes over amounts charged. So we do have those, and then we have to work that out. But otherwise, Frank's staff member is very good processing those bills much more quickly than in the past.
Great, that's good to hear.
And
Thank you.
Councilwoman, I'm looking at an invoice that was sent out by this individual, and she does stay on top of things. Looks like the date of the billing that went out was December 9th to the construction company. The date of the service was December 3rd.
That's good. All right, I thank you. That's good to hear. Thanks.
Chairman Quagliani?
Thank you. I just want to give my two perspectives on this. So my first perspective, when I was with the PD, the lion's share, I'd say 90% of the billing is for utilities, right? It's who's fixing your cable, it's the UI, it's the gas company, it's who's putting in a new catch basin. It's 90% of that is typically those types of businesses that already have an account set up. If I'm, somebody who needs to hire a police officer in town for a special event, typically those are pay on the job, right? There's no account already set up. So you're going to pay that officer when you get to the job. And then secondly, I could tell you, as the university is a customer for football games and other events, and Frank does have a very tenacious employee that bills, less than net 30, and then email reminders, thereafter. So they are on top of that. And I think we have to consider what that fee is. That fee is an individual taking the time to set up account, processing all the work slips from the police department, setting out the invoices, and really there's a cost of money, right? Cost of borrowing money. So that officer is getting paid, now, and then we may get the payment, net 30, net 60, or whatnot. So I think all of those things go into that administrative fee. So I just want to give you those two perspectives that I've lived at one point or another.
Thank you, Chairman. Are there any other comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilman Cohen is opposed. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we have before us communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi and the State Representative Michael. No, that's a lie. Hold on, I'm reading the wrong thing. I apologize. Communication C from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to a memorandum of understanding between the City of West Haven and the Municipal Accounting Review Board. Have a motion to approve? Councilman Bruno, thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. If we're open to discussion, I do have a few questions. I have them written down. So Mayor Rossi or Frank, I wanted to ask, as far as when you submit your future plans to the MARB, if at the same time you'd be able to send them to the city council or to the city council's office to them to be distributed to us. We generally learn about the plan and then see it afterwards. Is there a reason why you don't do that? And could we expect to have that change for the future? Because there's quite a few things that you are expected to be working on. And I'm just wondering if that could be shared at the same time.
I'm sorry, which plan are you talking about?
Well, you have a list of things that you have to do in time frames, right? You have the HR plan, don't you have the payroll? What are all your dates? Hold
Oh,
on.
so you're asking, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking for the council to receive whatever we submit to the MARB for their meetings. That's included in their agenda.
Correct. And then you also, on this, you have due dates for when they expect you to submit your plans that they're going to be reviewing to give you feedback on.
Okay?
And I'm just asking if we'd be able to receive them as well.
Sure, we could certainly send it. It's all public record, so yes.
Okay. Because we don't get it till after the meeting, and then we can go on the MARB website and see them. I just think that it would be great if we could get that beforehand. Not beforehand, even if it's when you submit it, if we can get it at that time as well. Your draft plans.
Okay.
And what are your thoughts? And I know Lee has on this that he's going to be talking to them about change some of the dates and negotiate those dates. It just seems that some of the timelines are very short, and the expectation on those. Are we concerned, or do we, Lee, do you feel that there's not going to be a problem because you'll be able to get that changed?
Yeah, they as almost as MARB sometimes is, I don't think they're going to be difficult about changing dates as long as reasonable efforts have been made to achieve the date.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm really trying to do is avoid entering into the contract if I know that dates can't be met. I'm not really talking about moving dates after we sign, because the time period's short enough that if we commit to dates initially short of something catastrophic, we should be able to hit them. But I'm just checking with staff to make sure if there's a deadline in there that we meet it, or if we can't meet it, that we agree to a reasonable deadline that MARB would agree to. And they pretty much know a lot of these targets. They're working with the consultant, Michael Malone, and others. So they pretty much know where we are on some of these targets. So I don't anticipate it as a problem.
And it just seems like every time the list gets longer and longer. Did we expect that to be the case? I mean, did we know over time that they're going to be doing more and more and more? Or is it like a huge surprise? Because it's like a surprise to me that, like, does a light bulb go off and they're like, oh yeah, this thing too you could be working on? Or is there like a list, like a to-do list or a bucket list that they have that they're going through?
Well, some of the deadlines are created because the consultant did the human resource group did a study, and that came up with some stuff. Sometimes we've had audits where the auditor comes up with aspects of city government and the way we operate and things we need to change. So some of them come up not because the MARB is sitting around in a groupthink trying to hit us with things. They're really more obvious from activities we've already engaged in. Some come up because of their interaction with Hartford and ideas that come up from there. So I don't really see anything in this document that had a metamorphosis from anything that isn't otherwise obvious.
Got it. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Councilman Bruno?
Well, hopefully, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. So I was wondering if you could tell us where we are on the action items that the MARB previously requested, such as like the HR study or ADP or any of those items that they wanted back a few months ago. Can you give us any update on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much, if we're not, we may, as we speak right now, we may be at 100%. But before the mayor signs it, I'm going to double check with people, all the various people in the administration and in staff to make sure that we have complied. You know, ADP, we're 90%, I would argue, very close to pulling the trigger. We meet every week. We meet on a lower staff level and a larger level on policy every week. The human resource study, I'm pretty sure it's complete. There might be a couple of items. Actually, there might be a city council or two that needs an I-9 for us, so on, and things like that. So I'd say we're more like 95 or 6% done with that, maybe not 100. And it's like that. But all I want is the flexibility to just check with staff and just, you know, adjust the dates so that we don't enter into an agreement where we know in advance we're not going to be compliant. I don't think that would be prudent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is for Lee. I'm not sure. I'm just going to throw this out. It kind of, just for my own clarity, and it goes back to what Councilwoman Hosky had mentioned. If you go to page 417A on page 4, and it's more clarity for me, and I apologize for this, but there's a statement here that said the City Council shall not take action on the proposed full year 2022 budget until MARB has been provided an opportunity to review and provide written documents on said budget to the mayor. I just, from a sequential standpoint, and I'm going back to what occurred in the last cycle, that we as a council initially, and I might have these percentages off, we basically recommended a budget of, let's say, with maybe a 0.56 or 0.58 mil increase. And we kind of basically knew that MARB wasn't going to accept because they wouldn't take less than 1 mil. So then we had to go back and we kind of settled on 0.8 mil. But, you know, is this, I'm not understanding this statement. Like, are we going to be able to deliberate? I mean, are we going to be able to deliberate in the same sequence as we did this time? I guess it's understandable that they would want to see the mayor's budget before it comes to the council, but they did that last time as well, didn't they? I mean, there's nothing different with the sequence, correct? I mean, they're not asking for something special this time. Anybody?
Aaron, yeah, I don't really see, as I read that through those provisions, I don't really see anything different. The only part of that contract, and it doesn't concern me because it's really on MARB, the only concern on that, the aspect of the contract, if MARB doesn't do their due diligence, and they don't get back to the city council in time for the city council pursuant to its obligations under the charter to actually enact the budget. But I would tell you in advance that if that were to be the case, I would be instructing the council to fulfill your obligations under the charter. And I would say that we're not in violation of the agreement because the breach is really on the part of MARB and not providing us with the proper documentation and information in order to complete the budget in a timely and diligent fashion. So I don't really see that as a problem. I see that the good faith, if you argue that this document is being entered into good faith by both sides, which that's supposed to be the case with all documents, of course, all agreements, what I see is the MARB trying to avoid you know, a volleyball, a back and forth. What they're really saying is, here's our budget, and then you enact your budget, and you'll consider the guidelines that, you know, we provided in our budget. So I really don't see the council as in any different position. Now, again, it's the same as last year, same as the year before. If the council wants to enact a budget completely defiant of what MARB wants, then, you know, you legally can be entitled to do that, but MARB can legally be entitled to take what actions are necessary on their part after you do that. I don't worry about the agreement concerning that. I would just worry about, you know, the funding source for the future. So,
No, actually,
I don't really see this document as changing anything from any other past year, except making it maybe a little more efficient.
Yeah, you answered both my second question. You answered as well, because I was afraid, like, what if they're slow on the trigger? You know, we're waiting to deliberate and they cancel a meeting or something like that. So I get it now. I'm just want to make sure that we can still do our deliberations like we did this past year and have the wonderful experience once again. So thank you very much, Lee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Lee, I'm going to push back a little bit on that. So I really would like to entertain if this should pass favorably from the committee, I would like to entertain an amendment regarding that particular section, because this council worked long and hard on that budget through deliberations, only to have the MARB weigh in at maybe the day before the charter deadline. So we had to reconvene and make a lot of changes so it would be acceptable to MARB. So I really would like to put a date in this MOU that says the MARB needs to, provide written comment to the mayor and the city council no later than X, to give us, whatever the date may be, to give us time to digest that and really deliberate that in enough time so we could, really be methodical.
I can make that request. Obviously, with COVID and a lot of other things, and with they have sometimes problems with quorums. I don't know. You can put any date you want in. You can put tight dates, but then people may be looking to amend dates. I think the important thing is they have to give it back to you in a reasonable time, and if they don't, as I said, I'm going to be advising you that you go forward with your process. I mean, you're not going to not. We're only talking about the final vote on the budget. So all the process that you engage in, which is 95%, which is although that last night is always grueling, 95% of the process you're going to have to engage in anyway.
Right.
And I'll be happy to do that, but first of all, I don't think they'll agree, because obviously they're not going to want to be held to a particular date. And whatever date we hold them to means they're going to hold us to other dates and collecting other information. I would rather be in a position where I can argue that they weren't diligent, and then I advise the council to go forward. But I will be happy to take instruction if you so desire.
Well, it's my personal instruction, but again, I mean, I don't think they did their due diligence last year. The mayor presented the budget on the third Thursday of March, and they presented their comments third party the night before the budget was due by charter on a vote for the city council. So I don't think that's expedient. I don't think that's helpful. I think it would be helpful. I don't say we need a month, but at least maybe a week. So we know that come April 30th, the MARB has looked at the budget and provided comment on the budget, and at least gives us, 3 or 4 meeting nights to digest that and identify if we have to tweak any of our recommendations. But to do it the night before, just really, it really erodes the process in my view.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. You can vote the contract with that amendment, or you can vote with the instruction that council will put fixed dates in for when they get the budget back. And then we'll negotiate what that fixed date is going to be. I mean, we know by charter what your drop dead date is. So I guess what I would advise is I would advise that the council provide the chair with the ability to consult with the corporation council to come up with the date we're talking about. And then I think you're covered. And then we'll come up with that date. Because unless you think the council feels comfortable coming up with the date tonight.
Listen, I don't want to belabor it on a date. I just to Councilman Cohen's point, I don't think it worked very smoothly last year at all, and I would like to avoid that again this year.
Well, I think the other way we could approach this is that when we send the MOU back, it can be with a cover letter and an interpretation of that provision that we deem a reasonable date to receive the budget back from MARB to be X. And I'll go over that with the chair before I send that, and then they'll know that our interpretation is that that's a reasonable date, period. And because look, I don't know who wouldn't agree that giving the council 24 hours to digest it isn't reasonable. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But like you say, is a week reasonable? Well, now you're getting to, people of reasonable minds can differ. 2 weeks, I would say people of reasonable minds would not differ. It's definitely.
Yeah. Listen, I'm fine. I'm not going to hold up I'm sure there's much more discussion. I'm not going to hold up hold on a minute. Little power outage. I'm not going to hold up the vote on this, but I do think that that's important. I think when you bring this MOU back, I would ask them that the council's request is that we pick a date where we have a reasonable enough time to get their comments, know what they are, and make and deliberate over those comments instead of the day before.
I will assure the council that I will include a cover letter, and I will include a 1 week range that we expected to get back and why that is, so that the council, get a reasonable time back to do your deliberation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm all set.
Thank you, Chairman. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And I believe that's it. Committee on Finance is closed at 7:59.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next committee is the Redevelopment Committee, Councilwoman O'Connor.
Good evening. The time is now 7:59. The Redevelopment Committee is now in session. Committee members are Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilwoman Johnston, Councilman Mitch, and Councilman Donovan, with myself acting as chairwoman. Communication B today is from Mayor Nancy Rossi and State Representative Mike DeMassa in regards to the establishment of an enterprise zone in the city of West Haven. Before we take a vote, I do know that State Representative Mike DeMassa and Mayor Rossi have a few words they'd like to say to all of us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Councilman Massaro did text me. He's on one of the lines, just so everybody knows he's here. I want to thank the mayor. The mayor and I, along with her staff and my staff, have been working on developing this enterprise zone for about a year. It's a very extensive process, and what Attorney Tiernan and the mayor and I wanted to do is kind of give you a 50,000-foot overview and then take questions. This actually came up in a conversation the mayor and I and Mike Malone had about a year ago over some items. And the mayor kind of said, listen, we'd like to see what opportunities we have out there for workforce development, et cetera. We went back, we looked at a number of things. In Connecticut, we have manufacturing zones, we have bioscience corridors. There's a number of mechanisms. And one of the things we came across was what's called an enterprise zone. And basically, in a nutshell, an enterprise zone is designed for census tracts within a municipality that have at least a 25% poverty rate. So 25% of the population in that census tract is at or below the poverty line. And the idea is that between the state and locality, they provide a number of tax incentives, from abatements to abatements on the corporate business tax in Connecticut, to incentivize corporations not only to develop there, but to hire individuals from within that municipality. So you're directly trying to lower that poverty gap. And so from there, once we found one census tract in the city that qualified, that falls, it's census tract 3616, which falls on Front Avenue, basically in between the 4th and the 5th local districts, depending on how the lines are cut. The next question was, how do we maximize within that census tract this zone? So the mayor and I, along with her team, sat down and looked at that area. And what you wanted land, number one. Obviously, it's a benefit. If you look at the map, the city of West Haven controls a large portion of land within this zone. So that has a twofold benefit. So obviously, when you pass a resolution like this for an enterprise zone, the areas within this zone are automatically going to be entitled to certain benefits if they meet certain criteria. However, the city of West Haven, being a landowner, has the direct ability to decide to sell land to businesses on a case-by-case basis on their proposal. So unlike a private citizen who could say, okay, I'm going to sell my land to Pfizer for whatever, the city has the option to say, listen, we like Amazon's proposal over Pfizer's. We're going to sell this piece of land to Amazon. So the city has much of a larger position to bargain over what goes in this zone. Further, if you look at this zone, there's very few residential properties. It's all light industrial zoned commercial area, which is a huge key. So basically, in a nutshell, businesses have to meet a certain criteria for investment, either in an expansion or a development, based on the jobs they're going to produce, the dollars they're going to invest. They can receive up to a 5-year 80% abatement of local property taxes based on qualifying business ventures, relocation, expansion, renovation, and depending on if they're going to hire, 30% of new employees have to be from the city. If they meet that and other criteria, they can get up to a 50% credit on their portion of Connecticut's corporate business tax. So that's huge. And what we're trying to do is what the mayor is trying to do is we want to give West Haven an edge, okay, over all the surrounding communities. Look, we have access to 95. We have access to rail. We have access to the waterfront. The idea is now, if you add all that in with state and local tax incentives, you now come to the top of the list of cities and towns that Connecticut businesses are going to want to invest in. Because when you're operating a business entity, all right, it's where can they get the best value for their dollar, right? Where can they get the best deal, the best incentives, the best access to these amenities? And we already have all the amenities. Now we're adding those tax incentives. And you're not losing anything today. So if the council goes forward with this zone as it's prescribed, all right, businesses there today are not seeing any additional value except for one. If you have a piece of property in this zone, including the city's parcels, this state designation has just made those city parcels much more valuable. Much more valuable. You've probably doubled the value of those city parcels overnight because there's a lot of other incentives now tied to those that businesses can get access to. So really, from your perspective, you're creating jobs for West Haven residents. You're doubling the value of your city parcels that you can now sell. You are incentivizing businesses to come here, and you are going to be able to clean up that corridor, which is right around the corner from Park Commons, where you've already built it up and cleaned it up and done all these renovations. You can extend that right down Front Avenue, right towards the center of town in the compost site. So, Lee, I don't know if you want to jump in, Attorney Tiernan, with any comments?
I'm sorry, Michael, are you talking to me or are you talking to the chair?
No, if you wanted to jump in with anything, Lee.
Well, no, I mean, I think Michael's highlighted the benefits. Thank God he's helping. We're already finding interested parties contacting us concerning this prospect. The city owns or can own more than a third of the land in this area. So, there's a revenue component as well. So there really isn't a downside to doing this. There's all upside. it's just a positive thing for the city. I can't see anything wrong with it.
Can I just,
Mayor, did you want to say a few words before I ask the council for questions?
yes, just very briefly, I would like to thank State Representative DeMassa for all of his help and assisting me in this endeavor, because we did start talking about conveyance tax, because truly, since I've gotten into office, we're trying to look at everything in any way that we can help the city and, you know, encourage development and obviously jobs for our West Haven residents. So we're doing everything we possibly can, and we're really going to leave no stone unturned. And we keep going through processes to see what we can find. I think this is a great opportunity for the city of West Haven. And again, I thank State Representative DeMassa and also Attorney Lee Tiernan, because he has assisted as well as many others behind the scenes. So thank you for that.
Okay, now before I open it up to the city council for questions, I need a motion. I can't see everyone on my computer. So,
So moved.
all right, and do I have I need a second before I can ask questions, correct?
Second.
Thank you. So now it's open for discussion. What I'd like to do is open it up to my committee first. Last time it seemed to work when I called on everyone. So I'll start with Councilman Donovan. Did you have any questions?
Just one for now. Mike DeMassa, how many other cities or towns also have this opportunity?
There are a handful of towns. Bristol has this, Waterbury has this, Meriden has it. But one of the things that you'll notice in those communities is there was a big push, and they received businesses when they were established. However, if the municipality doesn't keep up with going to attract businesses, you get that initial boom, and maybe you get 5 or 6 entities in and you get a huge kick, and then it kind of dies off. So there's about a half a dozen or so, like I said, including the 3 I mentioned. But again, it's all about what the city's kind of willing to do with it, because this is the first step, right? This will provide the incentives, but it's going to take obviously continued strong leadership from the mayor, which obviously she's 100% on board, in her economic development team to bring in, to push this out and bring in some quality businesses, which I know she's ready to do. She's been ready for a year to do this. So.
But she's not the only one. I mean, I think this is a absolutely fabulous thing. I appreciate everything that you and the mayor and everybody that has worked on this has done. So kudos for you for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hamilton, did you have any questions?
First, I want to say that I'm excited about it. As Allentown goes around that corner to continue the updates, and I'm just excited. What I wanted to know, you said that there'd be a team. So I'm wondering, I know maybe there might not be details or anything, but like, is there going to be a plan first, or as companies come, we say, yeah, and okay, you can be there? Or do we have any kind of plan? Do we know like what kind of industries that we're looking for? Or we're basically just looking at like whoever comes, we'll look at it and say, okay, are we looking for, I guess, a theme? I don't know if that's what are we looking for anything in particular?
Yeah, Representative DeMassa, you can jump in. Let me just see if I can answer some of Councilman Hamilton's questions. So as I said, we're already getting some interest, and you'd have to say that's word of mouth. You're going to be acting on a land transaction today of the existing businesses. So I think it's the position of this administration, and I would like to think it's the position of the councilors, that successful, good, clean businesses in this city need to be encouraged. And so We want to make sure that if they need a reasonable, not fiscally defiant level of assistance within the district, obviously we want to welcome that. The second part is some of the land in this district can only be developed in one way. So the old landfill, pursuant to current deep regulations, can only be developed for very limited purposes, and the purpose we've chosen is solar. We've already put out an RFP for solar developers, and we already have 2 that have expressed an interest. So we'll see what RFPs we get for that. What we thought with some of the remainder, what we have to look at is there's land the city already owns, there's land that the city can acquire either for delinquent tax purposes or other purposes. And so we thought we might actually go so far as to market this particular enterprise zone in some publication or some area or some place. I mean, obviously we do multiple places, but we wouldn't rule out, for example, advertising this in the Sunday New York Times, for example, or advertising this in a business publication that we know has a wide readership or a wide circulation within business communities that we think we can tap. But frankly, you know, one of the ways we found that is effective is if we can just get one of us to write a letter and follow up the letter with a phone call saying, hey, you interested? And thus far, you know, we don't have any pen to paper, but even just doing that thus far, we've found that business entities are responsive. But we're not ruling anything out. We want to make sure we maximize the opportunities for the city. And that's, you know, frankly, where the council comes in, because I think when any activity is presented back to the council, you need to feel confident that there's a reason why that this particular proposal is in the best interest of the city. And so where we think the one area, I think, if we think that there should be a little more education of the public to see what other entities are out there, that's where we might actually spend some money advertising. But we'll be quite prudent if we go that route. We actually, you know, we'll obviously look for every free area of internet and other notification. But the first and foremost is direct contact with direct entities that we know are interested because of their interest in other areas of the country or in other areas of development. And myself and Mr. DeMassa certainly are even looking at financing sources outside of the country. Again, at no cost to the city thus far, but we're looking at every avenue we can. And you can answer that if you want, Representative DeMassa.
No, that was perfect. I mean, the only thing I would add is, just so the council's aware, the way this process would work is, so if there's an entity that wants to go into this zone, they're going to apply to DECD. And DECD is going to review what their plans are, what they're going to invest, how many employees, and then DECD will either approve or deny their application based on statute, and then will notify the city, okay, this organization qualifies, and this is the tier, this is what they qualify for. And believe me, the state is very, because obviously there's corporate tax incentives that they're obviously gonna cough up. The state is very thorough, so every application will get the same shake. Every business that may have interest will get the same shake, but they will have to meet the statutory requirements for jobs and everything else. So it's not like one organization in the zone or will be treated differently than another. There's going to be, by statute, obviously, a very stringent criteria that every organization will have to meet. And it's nice because the burden won't necessarily be on the city to do that work. DECD will do that work, and then we'll notify the city, hey, okay, here's what this business is entitled to, and this is why, and then they can go from there.
Thank you. Madam Chair, can I ask one more question, please? Were you going around? Okay. All right, thanks. So this is a big opportunity. We don't want to lose it, and we want to, have a firm grip on it. So how often will the council hear, like, the progress? Can anybody answer?
Well, I'll defer to the mayor and Lee on that.
Well, it would, Councilor Amazon, it would be my anticipation that, I'm not going to come to you unless I have something I'm not going to propose or have a topic for discussion. I don't think the mayor would either, but I won't speak for her. But I think that the idea would be to come to you when we have something concrete that you need to be aware of and you need to discuss. But in addition to that, I've tried to make it a practice for the council to know. I don't think you should be blindsided by things. I think it's uncomfortable. It's been my experience that it's uncomfortable for any member of the city council to be asked a question that maybe my office knows the answer to, or Michael DeMassa knows the answer to, or the mayor's office knows the answer to, but the council doesn't know. And there's really no reason why we wouldn't have shared that information. So what we want to guard against is being overly enthusiastic without any rubber meeting the road. So there has to be something concrete for us to come back and, but as I said to you before, the city is going to control about a third of the land area of this enterprise zone. So the council is necessarily involved in a lot of the process regardless. And in addition to that, by the way, the Planning and Zoning Commission will probably be involved. Most of the area is zoned pretty well now, but there might be some changes in zoning designation or some site plan approvals that are required. So it would be my goal that, you don't just create a zone and throw it away. We're going to challenge ourselves to try to come back to the council every so often, probably more before the budget process begins, because we know you get busy with the budget process, and then try to hit you again after the budget process is over with the additional proposals and what's going on. We would anticipate activity on this very quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lee. That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Johnston, did you have any questions?
I think most of them have been answered, but I was wondering one thing. So when reading about the DECD application process and then, the state oversight, I heard Representative DeMassa say that the burden is not on the city to sort of, the oversight for all of these moving parts, but is there anyone from West Haven that would be sort of monitoring the number of jobs that go to West Haven residents, or is that solely on the DECD or the state?
So the jobs criteria is going to be measured by the state because it's directly tied to the corporate state tax benefit they're getting. So if they don't meet the 30% threshold, they can't get the 50% corporate tax abatement from the state. So the state will monitor on a quarterly basis the jobs to ensure that they meet that threshold. And obviously, if there was a point in time a company fell below that, they would give them a certain number of days to meet that threshold. And then if they didn't, they would pull that benefit.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Mitch, did you have any questions?
No, I don't really have any questions. I just had a statement. So anytime something's done in the fourth, it's kind of cool because we really are the forgotten district in my eyes in this city. We are probably the most distressed district in this city also. So thank you, Representative Michael, Mayor Lee. I heard about this a couple years ago. I think we were talking about an opportunity zone then, and I think it's changed over to this enterprise zone. So I am super juiced about this. That area needs anything that we could build up in this city, period, is awesome. I'm just glad that we have something going in the fourth because we just don't get a lot over here. But I just wanted to thank everybody for their due diligence on this. And I would like to ask maybe Representative Michael, maybe someday you could take me around and just show me the exact property. It's kind of hard to read on the map. Maybe I may excuse my ignorance on the map, but I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out the exact boundaries of that. So that's all I had to say.
Councilman, I believe the mayor will set up down the road in the future some sort of site visit, obviously for the council, I know Commissioner Lehman would probably like to come down. So I think the mayor's office at some point will kind of do an official site tour down there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Last time I did this, it was requested that I start with the councilman at large. So Chairman Quagliani, do you have any questions?
You took care of your committee, right? Councilwoman, you're all set?
Yes, I did with my committee.
Thank you. I just want to, listen, I think it's a great opportunity. If we look down, where that census tract is now, it's underdeveloped, it's distressed. There's not a lot of options there. Again, I think it's a benefit that the city does own a lion's share of the property, so we could become more involved than we typically would with a private property owner. I guess my question is a follow-on, I think, to Councilwoman Johnson's question, and I think, Michael, you answered it, but so even though DECD would control the doling out of the exemption or the reduction for the corporation tax, I think as a city, we would like to be involved to the extent that we could help really sell West Haveners to be employed in this census tract. So would we have an opportunity to know that information ahead of time, or when that when somebody files the application? I guess it most likely have to go through planning and zoning. So would there be a check at the Planning and Zoning Commission that would say, okay, well, based on the plan that you put forward, it looks like that you may be entitled to that 80%. Is there something that would catch what their thoughts are as far as new hires, in order to be able to see, really how we're impacting? Listen, we're impacting the area. That's great. We'll bring up the property values. We again remove some distressed areas there, but I'm really interested too about the individuals, and if we could get West Haveners good jobs in West Haven, I think we need to try to do that.
No, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, there's a lot of leverage. Obviously, a company would probably first contact the mayor's office and the economic development office in West Haven to tell them what they want to do, to get their advice, to get their input, to check zoning. But also, the city most likely will be involved with their application to the state, right? Because they'll want to make sure the city's on board and everything else first. So planning and zoning will be involved. The mayor can certainly alert the council to what's in the works. There's a 2 to 3 week turnaround with DECD from the time they get an application to a decision. But the reality is, if they work with the city, which obviously they would, such as Lee pointed out with some of the solar work he's doing, the RFP or RFQs, they're going to know ahead of time what they're going to qualify for, right? Because it's pretty much a statutorily based formula. But certainly those opportunities are there. And further, the city itself, the city council, mind you, and the mayor do have a lot of latitude over some of the city jobs, because you are going to, at the end of the day, there's no requirement here that you have to sell this property to any developer. So they're entitled to certain statutory benefits if they meet certain guidelines, but that's assuming that you are selling them the property, so they've met whatever other criteria you have and the mayor has. So you could set other benchmarks, especially with your property that you own.
Yeah, right. Because all this property has to come back to us for sale. Thank you, Michael. That's helpful. And then lastly, so should the council approve this evening, is there any hurdles left, or it goes up to the state and they would accept this now as an active enterprise zone?
So the last remaining piece will be to send this resolution up to Commissioner Lehman's office with obviously the mayor's blessing. And then the commissioner will actually sign a physical copy of the map and send it back to the city with his kind of granting of the district. So I would expect that if the mayor okays the sending of the council's resolution tomorrow, before Christmas, you'll have a map from them back signed off.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor.
Thank you, Chairman. Councilman Cohen, did you have any questions?
We're doing Hebrew tonight, backwards. Okay. Okay. Yeah, just congratulations to everyone involved. The amount of work here is, God bless you, Michael. Thank you, Mayor, and whoever else is doing that stuff behind the scenes. I do, you know, I know it's the 4th and 5th district, but the first thing that came into my mind, and maybe it's an unfair thing, is like an Allentown Renaissance when you basically think about some of the things that are, you know, the up and coming area that's being developed over there in Allentown, and now this is next to it, adjoining to the fort that always seems to not be as paid attention to as much as Councilman Mitch said. I think that's wonderful. I did have just a couple of small curiosities more than anything else because most of my questions were already answered. Is part of the enterprise zone, and I guess this is for Representative DeMassa, perhaps. There's potentially a 5-year 80% abatement of local property taxes, which is obviously a great incentive, no doubt about it. But I imagine that we would probably get a lot of that back simply because we're going to have people hired from West Haven working and so forth. So that in itself is not necessarily getting a property tax back, but you're getting income generating. And then they go out to lunch, they go out to dinner, they go to a movie, whatever. So you're getting that tax. But we're not, just to be clear, that's a great thing, but we're not going to be getting any type of reimbursement those first 5 years simply because we're getting probably much more from people working. Would that be a correct assumption?
It's a correct assumption. However, what I would say is, so if the council passes this and say it was enacted tomorrow, you're going to receive the same property taxes on all the properties right now you're getting. That doesn't change, so you don't lose money. What will happen is if a business now expands over there, or there's a relocation, or obviously there's a business development there, that abatement will go on to that expansion, relocation, whatever. So yes, so over that period of time, you're losing, you know, you're not getting 100% new business. But yeah, so your statement is correct, Council.
Yeah, and I should have said expansion as well, because that kind of leads to my second question, which I think is, again, a wonderful thing, a great benefit thing. When I looked at Exhibit 4 of our packet, you go down like 3 lines, 149 Front Avenue, Truffle Properties. That's a Sabatino truffle company, correct? That's their location, 149?
That is correct, Councilman.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking is because I think it's wonderful, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, but I remember reading the article a few weeks ago that, you know, they're expanding and going to stay in West Haven and all that good stuff. Were they aware of this potential opportunity? Was that one of the reasons that they were considering to expand because of this opportunity zone, or is this even more of a value added to them because because I think it's a good thing. I mean, it gives them more stability and maybe they'll hire more people, but did they know anything about this or not really?
So we've tried to, obviously for a fair playing field, we have not really released information regarding this to anybody. However, I will say that because I've been indirectly involved with the truffle factory, the mayor's chief of staff, you know, and the mayor have done an amazing job at keeping them. They were weighing their options, frankly, a couple of years ago. They were weighing their options to go down south. And the mayor and Lou have done an amazing job at keeping them here and getting property, you know, moving the pieces around so they can expand. And I know that basically, you know, the mayor and Lou have said to them, look, we want you here. We want you expanding here, and the city's going to do what they can to help you. Did they directly do anything on this? No, no, they haven't. Will they benefit from it? Depending on, you know, the expansion, the dollars, etc. They could certainly benefit from it. But the important piece of that now is they told the mayor on her recent visit that obviously they're going to be hiring more employees. If they want to directly benefit from some of this, they're going to have to be hiring West Haven individuals. Because right now, even then, but any business obviously that expands here, there's not necessarily an extra benefit for them to go out and purposely hire West Haven individuals. They may take some from other facilities they have. So this is actually an extra caveat to the truffle factory that now they for that expansion to hire West Haven individuals to work there.
Well, yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to get at, is because you're going to hire West Haven individuals in their expansion, if you will, they conceivably could get the 80% or whatever percent abatement is, or what have you. But they were not aware when they decided to stay in West Haven. They weren't aware of this, which maybe they'll even give them more, I'll use the word opportunity or reevaluation of even doing something special. That's all I'm saying, yeah, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bruno, did you have any questions?
I just wanted to say that I agree with what everyone's saying. I think it's great for the city of West Haven. Great job by Representative DeMassa and Mayor Rossi. It could potentially grow our grant list. It could potentially have our residents get jobs. It's great for the area, and I like it. So that's all I have to say on it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Finelli, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but just, want to reiterate what everyone else has said. Thank you to everyone who's worked on this. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a win-win. It's going to bring in tax revenue and jobs and some much needed economic development. So I think this is wonderful, and I'm really excited about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman McGee, did you have any comments, questions?
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited about this. I believe our city has so much potential, especially for business and economic growth and development. I think we're sort of like a gem. We have the beach. We have so many things in our city to really elevate it. So I do have two questions. The first one is, I know that there were cities mentioned before, but do we have any relationships with cities that have executed this that sort of can serve as inspiration for us to execute this plan? And then my second, that's the first one.
Councilwoman, what I would say to you is I know that obviously the mayor and her staff are involved with CCM and organizations that have representatives from these communities. And I'm sure that obviously as this moves forward, I think that the mayor and her team will obviously engage, all the partners they can to kind of what they did right or what they would have done differently. And that's certainly something I think that, they can explore with CCM or those organizations that have these member cities in them.
Cool. And then I have another question, and this is more for clarity and understanding. I think this puts us in a position, I think this will create an opportunity for there to be hindrances for businesses to come into our community. And so with the targeted investment communities and like the urban job programs, will that affect those who apply? Because if there are targeted investments, doesn't that mean that there are businesses or that we're already thinking about coming into our city? Or is that, is it, how can I ask this words clear? The targeted investments, like I'm assuming that is having sort of already an idea for businesses that will thrive in our community. Do those businesses apply just like those who want to have the chance to bring their businesses to our community? What does that look like?
So all businesses can apply. Obviously, the targeted investment community is somewhat designed to try to attract larger scale operations and also operations that would benefit the state, right? So manufacturing, bioscience, things of that nature. However, all businesses can apply. Furthermore, if you had an entity that was going to do a multi-million-dollar project, and for whatever reason, they didn't qualify under DECD's guidelines, there's nothing that stops them from coming to the city council, just like Mr. Beckerman has in the past, and saying, hey, city council, this is what I'd like to do. Would you be willing to grant me an abatement. And certainly the city council, right, can examine that. They can't grant the state tax benefits, but the city could certainly grant the local tax abatements if they so chose. So I don't see anything in that in a hindrance. And furthermore, I'm not saying DECD wouldn't approve a business that's not necessarily on that list. It's just those are the kind of the heavy hitters that they see hundreds of jobs that they think they can try to attract. But everyone can apply. Furthermore, in doing research on some of these other towns, I haven't found any business entities that weren't admitted. There's never been anyone that's willing to invest the money and do the jobs, et cetera, that hasn't qualified. So.
Thank you so much. I'm fascinated by this. I think it's amazing. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Massaro, did you have any questions?
Just like to reiterate, everybody has said it. Great job. And like I said before, vacant property don't help the city. We don't make any money on vacant property. Matter of fact, it costs us money because we got to clean it. And this building that's involved, if I'm not mistaken, burnt down about 8 years ago, and it's been vacant for about 8 years. So that's the greatest thing I ever heard, is get rid of it, whatever we got to do, and have businesses come in here, because we are hurting desperately. That's what will keep taxes down. Economic development will keep the people's taxes down, and that is a great help. Great job to everybody involved. That's all I have to say, and thank you, Cam.
Thank you, Councilman. Ryman spoke. Mitch spoke. Liz spoke. The next, Councilman Conlon, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions. Good job, folks. Nice going.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hosky, do you have any questions?
Yes, yes, I do. So, where shall I start? So, some of what Councilwoman Johnston was saying in regards to the jobs and the 30%, and I'm excited about this prospect, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't have questions. So, as in regards to what Councilwoman Johnston was saying in regards to jobs, 30% seems like a lot of jobs, but 30% of entry-level jobs, or 30% of medium range jobs, or 30% of what? Because a livable wage will garner somebody about $26,000 a year, and a 2-bedroom house apartment in West Haven is between $1,200 and $1,300. So if these companies are only slated to give them 30% of something, that just concerns me. And I know we can't control that, but it is just something, when you talk about 30%, it could still keep these people distressed. It could still keep them living. We got this because we have people on that, I forgot the wording, basically borderline in poverty. So if they're only paying livable wages and we have 30% of their jobs and we're giving them tax abatements, just that concerns me. So I'd like to say, 30% of something bigger, or I'm just saying, a livable wage isn't really a livable wage. My other question or comment, because I always have one, is tax abatements. I think that the way this is going to be advertised or shared with the city and the residents, we have to be very meticulous and make sure what our message is, because the city is going to hear tax abatement and they're going to get up in arms about it. I think we need to be sure that we are sharing all of that other stuff. Similar to when the Savin Rock Conference Center, when the developers came in, their message left out some really key things that got the city, or like, what are they doing? So I just think it's really important that we are talking about, you know, the jobs and all of those other things. Who is spearheading this effort? I am concerned. I am concerned. I keep hearing with all due respect, Mayor, I keep hearing the mayor's team. Well, what's the mayor's team? Is that Fred Masur, our economic development commissioner or chair? I don't know. I always forget what his title is. Is it the economic development committee? Like, who is going to be spearheading this effort once we get approval, hopefully before Christmas? I think that's concerning to me. I'd like to know who is the face of this. And the mayor has a million and one things. I don't think that we could be holding her accountable. And as much as I like Lee, and I think he's done a tremendous job, he steps outside of his job responsibilities, in my opinion, all the time. You know, what he's done for the library, what Lou Esposito did for the truffle. You know, who's going to be spearheading this effort to make sure it doesn't fizzle away?
Well, so far we've gotten this far, so I think the team's working well, quite frankly.
Well, I want to know who the team is. Like,
Well,
is it Fred Masur? Because he's the economic developer. So
Okay,
that's what I'm asking.
So far, it has been Michael DeMassa, myself has been involved, Lee Tiernan has been involved, Tom McCarthy has been involved, and Lou Esposito has been involved. And we've all been working together going forward with this. And that's the way we're going to continue it. I don't know if Michael is still on, if there's anything he wants to add. But as I said, we wouldn't hand this over to a like the Economic Development Commission or whatever, because that's more of a commission, a committee. We have the people that are at City Hall, and that's who we're using.
So
yeah, if I can add, Councilor Hosky, it's Lee Tiernan. We can't. Some things are in the process of being negotiated. Let me just say that maybe by your next meeting, certainly by 2 meetings from now, we will be sharing with you some of the new human capital that's being brought into City Hall. Some of that new human capital that we'll be presenting to you will be helping out in this area. So I think you just got to trust us for another couple meetings because some of it involves negotiating with certain individuals. But trust me when I tell you, you'll be pleased with what you see in the future meetings in terms of new human capital being applied to this and other activities in the city.
okay. No, I appreciate that. And my message was not that I didn't trust you. I just know that we were saying the human contact, and I know there is the Economic Development Committee, and I'm not in charge of them. I'm not the liaison to them, but I know that they're there. So I was wondering, could they be utilized? And again, we do have somebody in City Hall that has the title of something to do with economic development. So I was wondering if this was a project he did have his hands in. But that's all that I got. Thank you so much, Chairman O'Connor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'd just like to say that kudos to everyone involved. Representative DeMassa, you've done a terrific job. You can tell that you've done your homework. Mayor Rossi and Attorney Tiernan, thank you both also for being involved with this. I think this is a great thing for West Haven. I want to remind everyone that we're still in committee. So when I call for the vote right now.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could just, on Councilwoman Hosky's first 2 points, if I could just point out, I absolutely agree with her that 30%, look, we'd love to have 100% of West Haven individuals hired. And certainly we're going to lobby for as many individuals and not just obviously the $15 an hour, like low pay. We want them to have opportunities within these businesses that are going to provide them quality benefits and a stable income. And as far as the tax abatement information and how that's distributed, having, worked with certainly Lee and Lou and the mayor on this for a year, I could tell you that the mayor likes to get the best deal she can, and she's going to make sure this information gets out there, and she has as many offers as she can. And certainly I've offered to utilize my state resources at her disposal for whatever we can do to help her with that. Thank you, Chairwoman O'Connor.
Thank you. All right, so Chairman, when I do the voting, I'm going to need your eyes because I can't see everyone on it. So we've already done the motion, so all I have to do is say, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Is there any abstentions? Did the motion pass unanimously?
It appears that it did, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, my friends, that was part one. Part two is now coming. It's Communication E from the Corporation Council regarding the MOU for the Savin Rock Conference Center. I have spoken with Corporation Counsel Lee, and this is something that I think is really good for the city. Before discussions, I'd like to get a motion to pass this favorably.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now we're up for discussions. I do know that they are hiring a special consultant to work with the development people and the city of West Haven to make this to go as smoothly as possible. Lee, before we go into questioning, did you have anything else you'd like to say?
Well, yeah, the one thing I think some counselors or all counselors would be interested in is, obviously this comes back to you. What we would anticipate is this gives the developer the basis to continue along, and when they need are on more solid footing, they've lined up the financing, they have a plan, then we would come back. So you still get the final say. But this MOU allows some good faith bargaining and negotiation. And all it really does is it says that we're not going to try to undercut the work that they're doing by trying to cut another deal with somebody else while they're looking to put it together. That would be bad faith on our part. I think it would also hamper any future negotiations with any developers that we couldn't be trustworthy. So this really allows the developer to feel like if they're going to put the effort and, frankly, money, because it does cost money to hire architects, attorneys, and other consultants. If they're going to put that money up, they need some sort of agreement. So I hope that the council views it that way. Obviously, it says 365 days. I would anticipate we're going to come back a lot sooner than that. But that allows the developer to really facilitate everything, including, discussions with neighboring property owners. So anyway, the final plan would come back to you. This is really just the starter. But, we're pretty excited that we have a developer to work with who has a success locally and other developments, and they're pretty excited about the site. So that's good.
Thank you. I'm going to do it the same way. So this time, Councilwoman Hamilton, did you have any questions? I'm going to start with my committee first, then go to the rest of the council.
Yeah, another exciting venture at our doorstep. I don't know who could answer this, but this developer has a year to decide, like, what happens in this year to decide if they want to go forward with it? Are they exploring, like, I don't know. A year seems like a very long time. What are they doing in the year's time?
Okay, so there are ways to terminate the agreement prior to the year, but what the year says is basically, if they're putting money in and they're getting to their goal, and maybe they even start preliminary discussions. We'll give an example. when he talked about the parking and the possible engineering of underground parking. I mean, he's going to have to hire an engineer to do schematics on that, all right? So let's say he does the schematics, and, you know, he gets schematics back that talk about the parking and the engineering. Well, then once he has the concept that he can do it, now he's got to look at the finance. So that, you know, stuff does take time. So this isn't about giving him 365 days to tell us at days 364, oh, I'm not interested. And he's got to hit targets along the way. He's got to be doing due diligence along the way. And, you know, it would be odd for a developer to enter into an MOU, sit on their hands, and not do anything. I don't know what the purpose of that would be, especially a developer who is in the business of developing. That's how he makes money. I'm aware of the developments he's been involved in. So 365 days seems like a long time, but you got to remember that's to get to a start date, which requires a lot of preliminary work to get to that start date to have the right concept. You know, you're talking about probably, you know, a reconfigure of the whole building. And you're talking, like I say, he had a pretty, I would say, challenging idea in terms of the parking. If he doesn't do the parking, he may have some other ideas to re-engineer things. So I feel pretty, and then lining up commercial financing. You know, commercial financing is not like lining up financing for your house, because think about it. It makes sense, I think, to everybody. If I have a concept, you know, if you have a house and your neighbor has a house and the houses are similar, banks know how much those houses sell for and what they're worth. Commercial lending is much more complicated. You need detailed business plans, potential upfront leaseholders. You need to look at other concepts that are working, market studies. You need to look at rate of inflation, all that kind of stuff. So it really does take a little bit of time, and I don't think it's unusual. But the 365 days really is to get you to the end point, not to get you to the beginning point.
So do you know, is that standard practice, you know, on a development like this, project like this? Is it standard, like 12 months? Because we're going to be looking at an empty building for another year.
Well, I can tell you that the template that I used for this agreement came from standard documents, yes. So in this case, you could have shortened it, but like I said, there are some aspects of this project that are going to require a little more time to develop. And then once you get all the engineering and all those concepts together, then you have to present it to a commercial lender. Commercial lender's got to come back to you. And then even after that, once you have all the financing in place, then you got to line up who's going to do the work to get you start to finish. So believe it or not, 12 months isn't as long as you might think in order to get to that point. The flip side of it is, you know, remember, we only had 4 bidders. So, you know, I don't know if shortening the time, I mean, is there another developer that's going to do it under better terms? I'm not aware of that. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with this. It is a timeline that's used in other developments, other municipal developments, not just in West Haven, but in the county. Certainly, I won't speak outside of the county. So I'm comfortable with the timeline.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Johnston, did you have any questions?
Not necessarily. You know, I think the big concern is the obvious comparison with the other development. And I think it's important that we, you know, everybody knows that we're not selling the property or the land, that it's, you know, being developed and still owned by the city. You know, I understand people's concerns. I really don't have any questions at this time, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mitch, did you have any questions?
No, I did not. I'm with Councilwoman Johnson. Make sure that the public knows that we're not selling this property. We're not giving it away. I've been all over this for 10 years. I've been through this country, and you go to beaches, and that's where they make all their money, and we don't utilize that enough at this point. So this is, and I guess to Attorney Tiernan, really a year is not a lot of time. I agree with that. And he said to the end point, so I'm assuming even it's 8 months from now, I'm assuming they'll have all these plans all set and be ready to start on their project. Would that be correct, Lee?
Yeah, I would anticipate 8 or 9 months we're negotiating the next step and presenting something to, getting ready to present something to council as to what they have. That's correct.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Donovan, did you have any questions?
Not so much with the questions. Again, this is a great thing. Getting this up and running would be fantastic. And Lee, I think you can appreciate why Councilwoman Hamilton was a little leery with the 365 days. Just like Councilwoman Johnson said, we already have a project that obviously we're worried about and what's happening with it. I know this is a whole different ballgame, but it just leaves people, the West Haven residents are still, making those comments that, hey, how long is this going to take? Is this going to be another one of those projects? I know it's not. I know it's a whole different company, whole different developer, but I really seriously think this is going to be a great thing, and hopefully this works out even before a year. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, this time I'm going to open it up to the rest of the council while Lee is still on the phone. And this time I'll start with Councilwoman Hosky. Did you have any questions?
I am right as rain. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Councilman Conlon, did you have any questions?
I'm fine for now, Colleen. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councilman Massaro, do you have any questions?
No questions, just go for it, that's it.
Thank you. Councilwoman McGee, did you have any questions?
I second Councilman Massaro, just go for it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Vinelli, did you have any questions?
Nope, I'm just going to third Councilman Massaro, so I'm good.
Awesome, thank you. Councilman Bruno, do you have any questions?
No, just really excited about it, and hopefully it'll jumpstart the whole shoreline. And we're all really excited about it.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen, do you have any questions?
Oh, I do. What would a council meeting be without me with questions? Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I wish Lee, I wish you well in negotiations. I wish the administration well in negotiations. I truly do. I think this is, as you wrote in this, I'll call it the template. I know it needs further revision and so forth, that there are some stopgaps here that within, let's face it, he may not be able to come up with the funds, or there might be a hiccup. But what I like about this is that we're going to know if this developer is going to be able to deliver, what we're going to know within the year, and we're going to be able to then adjust ourselves. So it's not the Havens, and I think it's so promising. I know we only came with really, well, in my mind, the one recommended developer, which happens to be this one, but they're highly qualified, and let's keep our fingers crossed. With that, I do have, and again, Lee, I realize this is a template, but when I look at page 3 of the contract, excuse me, under title, it says the intent of the parties is to convey the title to buildings on the city property and grant a long-term ground lease. And Lee, what I was really wondering, and if you don't have the answer for this because it's still to be negotiated, I respect that. But I know that later on in the contract, we basically note that we're trying to put this on the tax rolls for 30 years. I know the mayor, myself, and other people have talked about, we're looking for a long-term lease, and we kind of always tag like 20 or 25 years. Is there something that you're able to, are we so fluid on that, or is there some number that you had in mind? And if you don't, if it's too early for that, that's fine. I'm just curious if we're looking for long-term, if that's going to be, if you had some number in mind.
No. So if you look at, the ground lease is generally, for example, to develop new or extensive development on public housing. Surfside, for instance, you're going to see that a ground lease is developed. Now, public housing isn't a good example because they make a pilot payment. But in that particular instance, they'll probably put title into a different developer. And so what the beauty of that is even if a developer takes advantage of the terms of statutory terms of public housing, which again, they pay pilot anyway, the new developer in terms of the building and how we tax structures, we're going to be able to get tax payments on the structures. If you look at an assessor's card, even in your own house, I'm assuming you own your own house because you've discussed it in other meetings. You would see that there's a assessment for land and an assessment for buildings. So what we're anticipating is even if there's a ground lease, that if we allow ownership of a new building, I mean, if they go scrape it right to the ground and build a nice structure, again, that council agrees with in advance, we'd tax it. And now we could go a different route on that. We could negotiate it different, but we're leaving our options open that the tax would be the easiest and, without, for lack of a better phrase, because we are a municipality, but most lucrative avenue to go. So we're just really leaving our options open on that. And then, of course, there'd be a payment on the ground lease. But, don't forget, in the end, you're putting together a development that works. That's going to be a successful development. So that's
Absolutely.
where the negotiation.
No, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Lee, also, just to kind of, eventually when this gets further refined and so forth, and I know this is the template, if you will, that other towns have used. If you go to, if you would, on page 3, number 6, it says use, and I'm just going to paraphrase here. On the third line, it's on the last line on page 3, it says the potential developer will use all reasonable efforts to ensure the project includes retail and other uses. And obviously, when he gave his presentation, he gave us his vision in terms of, the restaurants, the banquet halls, what I'll call the retail, the museum in the front. Is there other uses that we're looking at, or can you, will that be spelled out more in a later contract, or because it's an obvious question people are going to be asking. What do you mean, especially with, you're never going to do it. You're going to end up building more of this, more of that. And, are we going to keep it very generic like that, or is it going to be more targeted, defining other?
I'm planning to keep it generic. I mean, we know what we don't want, but it's
Right,
hard to
exactly.
be exhaustive about every use. I mean, we know we don't want residential. It's not a hotel.
Right.
So that's really just keeping the door open. Life changes, business changes, things change. I'm helping Beth Sabo with some things around the centennial, and I won't give away too much yet. I'll probably leak things as we go on to the council, but I can just tell you that if you go back 100 years, the world was a very different place, and the world changes very fast. Even we have underground tanks, for instance, for our vehicles. I have to be honest with you. I don't know if the tank, let's say the tank lasts 20 years. Fine, I'm good with that. But 20 years from now, I don't know if we put in new tanks because the fleet may be electric, and there does seem to be a trend going to electric. So, things change. I don't know if some, entrepreneurial kid is going to come up with some concept we didn't envision, but be clear that we know what we don't want. And I think that's the most important thing. That we can be clear what we don't want and keep an open mind as to new ideas.
Yeah, and Lee, and I appreciate that, and I know we've said this, but I'm going to just say it again, that we don't want residential. I mean, that's the one thing that I want. If anyone's listening to this meeting, don't get, and if you read something like this, don't read into anything too much. We all don't, for all of our differing reasons that I know the mayor has discussed. I think every one of us have discussed to some differing degree. And so that was the reason why I asked that question. We don't know what the future holds, like you said, Lee, but at least we know what our intent is. I have one more question, and that will be it. Sorry, but only one more question. Lee, on number 7, and again, real estate taxes, I was just curious because, let's face it, the Savin Rock Center site, that whole waterfront site is just so wonderful. And that's why we're keeping it and we want to lease it long-term and so forth. I was surprised that, at least for now, that you note that, and I'm paraphrasing here, property to a tax-exempt entity such as Pilot, would be acceptable. And that always concerns me because the first thing I think of, and I'm not that educated on this, is when you think of, the universities, should it be Yale or UNH, they're paying whatever. They're giving us voluntary contributions. We're getting reimbursed a certain amount by state, but it's not like a tax. So I would think that and again, you don't know what the future holds, I get it, but the idea of getting retail, restaurants, tourism, whatever, I'm just wondering why we even put that in there at this point, why we would even consider Pilot at such an early stage. And if I'm overreading it, I am, and I apologize, but it kind of stuck out at me.
No, I don't think you are. In consultation with the mayor, this is no different than the Allentown Library in some respects. The Savin Rock Museum, we think, is important in a lot of ways, and frankly, the developer liked the idea. The idea is, as part of this development, to enhance the Savin Rock Museum, to make it a real generator of foot traffic. So you kind of have to leave open how would that be, because at least initially, unless it, just was gangbusters, you'd have to think that was a nonprofit directive. There's also been discussion for years about a carousel. Now, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but, you wouldn't want a situation where you could put a carousel into the development project and, there's a huge cost. So, you'd want to provide some flexibility that made sense. You don't want to come back here and say, that's not what you told us at the beginning, right? So you'd want the flexibility if you had situations like that. I can't anticipate anything other than those 2 items that would be involved in any sort of pilot agreement. Because otherwise, I think we come back and revisit, because now you're delving a lot further away from the free enterprise piece. And, there might be a lot of other enterprise or entities that the council might want to consider.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Those 2 things, they would be on the table. And, the council might want to entertain a pilot agreement on those 2 ideas. Again, if they come up, the museum definitely, there's a definite enthusiasm that it be retained in some form or fashion, and actually in a more promoted fashion than a less promoted fashion. So I think in that terms, that's why we want the ability to have a pilot agreement. In other words, the point is, even if that were the case, we're not giving it away.
No, I appreciate that. It puts my mind at ease. I understand why it's in there now, because obviously the Savin Rock, I should have thought of that. But thank you very much, Lee. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Chairman Quagliani, did you have any questions?
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. Most have been answered. I mean, again, I think it's important that that we underscore there's no residential component to this project, that we're not leasing the bike path or Savin Rock or the stretch of beach behind it. We're just contiguous to the Savin Rock Conference Center building and that particular footprint. And also that there's going to be a community workshop involved in this. So the community will have an opportunity, hopefully sooner rather than later, to at least under some meeting type, most likely virtual, to be able to have a workshop and kind of give their thoughts and ideas of what they envision that would fit in there within the developer's scope of work. So I think those are all important. I think right now, as everyone had said, I think it's a good project to move forward with. The developer is going to know much less than a year, whether it's something that's viable to them or not. And I think it makes sense for the community to cooperate and to have some level of enthusiasm, because it's been a long time, and I'm looking forward to the next steps on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, we do have a motion on the table now, and we are still in committee, so I only need my committee to vote. And again, I'll need your ayes. So all in favor?
Aye.
Say- All opposed? Any abstentions?
It looks like you're unanimous, Councilwoman.
Awesome, thank you. And I just wanted to say in closing that I'm really, really excited to have just a small part in all these exciting things that are happening here in West Haven. I want to thank each and every one of you who put in all your hard work to make these happen, and let's keep praying that these just keep moving forward. With that said, the time is now 9:12, and that is the end of the redevelopment committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. Nicely done. Next committee is the Public Lands Committee. Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 9:13. The Committee on Public Lands is in session. Members present are Chairman Galignano, Chairwoman Finelli, Chairman Conlon, Chairwoman O'Connor, and myself acting as chair. Before us tonight, we have the sale of Communication F, the sale of 155 Front Avenue and 165 Front Avenue East. I'd like to make a motion to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Second. Mitch Galignano made the motion, and Colleen O'Connor, that was the second. Before we do discussion, Lee, can you enlighten everybody with this sale? If you're still here.
You looking for me, Councilman Donovan?
No?
Hello?
Yes, Lee.
Were you
Is
looking?
Lee
Yes.
still here?
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. No, I wasn't sure if you're looking for me or somebody else. Yes, so this is an existing businessman, and he's looking, what he is explaining is that he's looking to another existing city businessman, and if he can do this acquisition, he will then have a footprint that will facilitate a business that can move over to his property, and then he can move into the other business. It's very similar to what we were able to do with the truffle factory. So that this is a sale of land, and it is, it is worth noting that it's land within the new, hopefully the new investment zone, as we call it. And as we say, we think this is going to generate business. The sale price is slightly below what the assessed value would suggest, although that's not unusual. This is the price that we had the back and forth negotiation on. This really was by the property owner. We haven't marketed this land, but as you can see, or I hope you can see, I mean, he's buying adjoining property. So this land has value to this property owner in this particular way. I probably wouldn't package this land this way if we were going to negate this sale and do some other sale. It might go a different way. But we don't believe it harms or hampers any additional development. We want to encourage good, clean businesses that are doing work. And we think that, this is going to pretty quickly generate additional revenue on a lot of different levels for the city, including tax revenue and personal property tax and so on and so forth. So, I don't know, I recommend the sale. Again, it was generated by the owner himself, generating the interest.
Thank you, Lee. Any discussion with that? from our committee before I go to the council? I can't see everybody. Let me see.
Mr.
Anybody in the committee have?
Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
I just want to say again, another thing in the 4th District that I'm wonderful with, another bonus for the city to for another tax dollars, I guess, here. So listen, I'm totally in favor of this because that's a distressed part of the 4th District again. So I'm all for this. Again, thank you guys for your due diligence on getting this done.
You all set, Mitch? Councilman Gallagher, sorry.
All set, Chairman. Thank you.
Anybody else in our committee? Chairwoman O'Connor, did you have your hand up before? Are you good? No, you're good? All right. One thing I just want to say, again, yes, this is, it's a little bit lower than the assessment, but it's better than nothing right now. I mean, we are getting good money for it. And it is an as is as well. Meaning he has to absorb, Lee, just correct me if I'm wrong, he has to actually absorb any kind of transfer costs or anything like that, including environmental, if any. Is that correct?
Yes. So the transfer documents would indicate that he's absorbing any cleanup costs, or even phase 1 study or phase 1 costs, phase 2 costs. So you would have a hold harmless in addition to the other sale documents that he would give us, which is always useful. We do have a problem with selling land that we don't know. It's a question mark, and then if you find out that the land is dirty, then a lot of times they walk away. So it's a good point, Councilor Dunham. I'm glad you brought it up. That's another reason why the price makes sense.
Right, because if we had to do it, it would just cost us, 5 times as much, I'm sure. I think this is a good deal. I think this is something that we should look and favor for passing on this. We're also getting rid of part of 165 Front Avenue. It's called 165 East. It's like that parcel is like a 0.2 acre. We're going to sell 0.1 of it because the other part of it is the water state, the pump station there that we have. We cannot, obviously not going to sell that property. So we will continue to keep that property. Put this out to the council. Anybody from the council? I'm not going to be as organized as Councilwoman O'Connor. So you raise your hand, I will scroll back and forth and see. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Seeing none. All in favor? The committee, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the Committee on Public Session is now closed. It is now 9:20 p.m.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Okay, unfinished business. We do not have any. Council now will convene as a whole. For committee reports, if I could ask the clerk to read Communication D into the record.
Mr. Chairman, tonight we have Communication D from the tax collector in regards to overpayment refunds for the month of December 2020, which will be filed with the record, sir.
Thank you, Michael. All right, first committee to report out is the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of police extra duty administrative fee increase, reports that the committee met on the 14th day of December 2020 to consider said matter. It is the majority's opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, Mayor Nancy R. Rossi requests for the City Council ratification of an increase in police extra duty administrative fees from 18% to 22% effective January 1st, 2021 be approved.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward communication A from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to police extra duty administrative fees increase. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Galignano. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Councilman Cohen? Are there any abstentions? Motion passes by majority.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a memorandum of understanding between the City of West Haven and the Municipal Accountability Review Board, reports that the committee met on the 14th day of December 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the memorandum of understanding between the City of West Haven and the Municipal Accountability Review Board submitted by Mayor Nancy R. Rossi on December 6, 2020.
Councilwoman Hosky has brought forward communication C from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to a memorandum of understanding between the City of West Haven and the Municipal Accountability Review Board. Is there a second? Second, Councilman Cohen and Bruno. Is there any discussion?
I do. I'm having a discussion on this.
Councilman Massaro.
Sorry, I wasn't when this came through because I had a problem getting online. But I have a few problems with this MOU. Kind of contradicts itself. On the backside of the first page says they're going to give us $4 million, and every time we come up with something here in the city for the plus, they never give us what they say. I'm not very good with their word. And also on page 2, number 6, if you read that, it says it will pay up to $4 million, and they're not going to give us what they really say they're going to give us. And I also have a few other problems on page 5. As far as I'm concerned, what I read and what I see, I am not voting for this. I'm against it. Because the MARB does not keep its word what it says to the mayor. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Are there any opposed?
Councilman Massaro opposes.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. And are there any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes by majority.
And that's all we have for finance, sir.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next committee to report out is the Redevelopment Committee, Councilwoman O'Connor.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Redevelopment, to whom was referred the matter of the establishment of an enterprise zone in the City of West Haven, reports that the committee met on the 14th day of December 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby authorize Mayor Nancy R. Rossi to establish with the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development an enterprise zone in Census Tract number 3615. The perimeters of this zone will be congruent with Map Exhibit 5. The City Council agrees to adhere to the statutory requirements for the perimeters of incentives in conditions as established in the state statute. Be it further resolved, the City Council authorizes the mayor and the Office of Corporation Counsel to file with the state of Connecticut all documents, attachments, and revisions hereto necessary for the establishment of such enterprise zone concurrent with state statute. The City Council also requests quarterly reviews on the progress of the zone from the development team.
Councilwoman O'Connor has brought forward Communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi and State Representative Michael DeMassa in regards to the establishment of an enterprise zone in the city of West Haven. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Galignano. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton.
I just want to give kudos, I didn't before, to my favorite representative, Michael DeMassa. And I'm not going in any order, but to my representative, Michael DeMassa, I thank you for the hard work that you have done to secure this and that you will continue to work on it. I thank you for answering any questions that I had on this, and I appreciate your effort. I think Mayor Rossi has left, but for the record, I just want to thank her for seeing the value in this. And I'm trusting that she will just go forward to make this happen too. And Lee Turnin, I thank you also for the vision that you see in this, and I appreciate your efforts in it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, the only thing I want to add is we had talked about one of the benefits is the 80% tax abatement should the entity meet all the requirements. I just want to point out, as we talked about, that probably 80% of this property is city-owned property. So right now we're getting 0 tax dollars on that property. So if we get someone in there to develop the property, build a building, have equipment in the building, hire West Haven residents, that 80% is nothing that would stand in my way of having all those things happen. So again, I just wanted to point that out. Right now we're getting a whole lot of nothing on those parcels because most of them are city owned. That being said, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Yes, Mr.
Seeing
Chairman.
none?
I'd like to abstain from that. Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Are you abstention, Councilman Bruno? Okay, yeah, 1 abstention. Motion passes by majority.
Okay. Do I go now? To
You're
the
up.
Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Redevelopment, to whom was referred the matter of an MOU for the Savin Rock Conference Center, reports that the committee met on the 14th day of December 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the corrected attached memorandum of understanding between the City of West Haven and the Smarna Group submitted by Mayor Nancy R. Rossi as of December 14th, 2020. The council also requests a 6-month update from the administration on the status of this MOU as work in progress.
Councilwoman O'Connor has brought forward Communication E from Corporation Counsel regarding an MOU for the Savin Rock Conference Center. Is there a second? Councilman Cohen, Donovan, Bruno. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there anybody opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and nothing else but a smile from ear to ear. The redevelopment committee is done.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Connor. Next committee is the Public Lands Committee, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred the matter of the sale of 155 Front Avenue and 165 Front Avenue East, reports that the committee met on the 14th day of December 2020 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the sale of 155 Front Avenue and 165 Front Avenue East, the boundaries as drawn by the City of West Haven Office Corporation Council, sale to Industrial Recycling LLC for the sale price of $115,000.
Councilman Donovan's brought forward communication F from Corporation Council in regards to the sale of 155 Front Avenue and 165 Front Avenue East. Is there a second? Second, Councilman Bruno, Councilwoman O'Connor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously. All set, Councilman Donovan?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I am all set. That is it for my committee. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Donovan. Adoption of ordinances previously presented. We have none pending. Are there any council liaison reports? Seeing none at this time. New business, Councilwoman Hosky.
I just wanted to mention that to the public, I know the city council was in attendance, but on December 9th, we did have a meeting in regards to the West Haven Police Department's pension. We had special guests from Branford, their finance director, Jim Fintz, their first selectman and the assistant finance director, as well as the chief and assistant chief of West Haven, union representation, as well as the police commissioners. Paul Butler was in attendance. If anyone is interested, they could view the meeting on our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, the live stream did not work that evening. But more to come. We are looking to work more on this in the coming weeks to months to hopefully get resolution. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two very quick things. First of all, I would like to personally congratulate Kellen Driver. He's a young gentleman that goes to West Haven High School, and he recently earned Eagle Scout status, which is quite rare. And with that, I would personally like to thank, as his family would like to thank, the assistance of Mark Payne and our Parks and Recreation Commissioner, because it was a project that Kellen did in Painter Park in terms of cleaning up some brush and some rocks and some stones that really helped him amongst his other badges to earn that. He also attended a couple of our council meetings to also earn the badge. So I just want to give him a shout out. Well done, Kellen, really well done. We're all very proud of you. The other thing that I did want to bring up, and it really goes back to the last meeting where Chairman Quagliani, invited us to view the Beach Street project at the last meeting. And I would say about a few days later, I'd gotten a call from some of the neighbors. Some of them were my friends. Some of them knew I was on the Public Works Committee. And they gave me about a good hour and a half discussion, and they gave me a tour of stage 1, 2, and 3, and expressed a number of concerns. And then subsequently after that, last week, myself, along with a number of other council people, Councilman Conlon, Councilman Donovan, Councilwoman O'Connor, and if I'm missing anyone, I apologize. But there was we all basically all went, and I thought it was an extremely productive meeting with the neighbors. There must have been about 30, 35 people there, along with Commissioner McCarthy and Abdul Qadir, Mark Payne, and it was a very, very productive meeting, I thought, where they're going to be following up and really engage the community. A number of concerns were raised, and with that, they don't, from my understanding and from what I heard and what I read, that, you know, they're not going to really be beginning the actual, any structure beginning at stage 2 until, like, you know, March or April or something like that. And they haven't really finished the planning, which is great, because now the neighbors are going to be able to at least give them their input, answer their questions, and if and when, I don't really know, possible, you know, the DEP person was there. And, you know, and with all that said, I think it's great, because there were concerns. And Chairman Quagliani, what we may wish to do, and I'll touch base with you separately on this, is once this project has gone through all the channels, is approved, and they've had their public hearings and so forth, it is such an important project. I guess like one phase was like 3 million, the second phase was 5 million, you know, a big project that we may want to have next year, next spring, once it's all approval, just to give, you know, every quarter or every few months an update by, you know, either Public Works or from DEEP to know the progress of it, because of the amount of concerns, you know, that we might want to consider that in our meetings, our future meetings, an update on Beach Street because of the importance. And I just throw that out there, and I'll touch base with you, Chairman, when that time comes and when we both feel it's most. But my goodness, I think we all walk the beach, and it's pretty citywide. So I basically just leave it at that, and especially, I'm willing to continue to overlook that as the Public Works Committee Chair. So with that, those were my 2 items, and I wish all of my council people a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Are there any other new business? Councilwoman, for the first time, any other new business? Councilwoman Hosky.
I forgot to mention the thing that I did have for new business. I just wanted to remind everybody in the public, I know the council knows that West Haven High School is still collecting toys for their Toys for Joy, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. until this Friday. It'll be the toys that are collected will be distributed for families in West Haven. And I know there's tons of local things going on at different churches as well. The Wheat is looking for donations, as is the animal shelter. Generally, the band at West Haven High School holds a Christmas concert that they weren't able to do, so those donations weren't those donations didn't happen. But definitely the principal at West Haven High School and her staff are doing an amazing job this year. The need is great, so they're looking for the community to help as much as they can. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Is there any other new business? Just to note that I had the opportunity to walk with some of the residents down at the Beach Street project as well, and it's going to need the city oversight. I think there's some concerns with the residents regarding the height of the elevation, but I do think that the city's team is engaged and working with the community. I know that State Representative Boer is engaged and working with the community, so I'm confident there's time for public input and more discussion in order to get that project to a place where almost everyone is happy. We'll never make everybody happy, but hopefully we'll increase the safety without eroding the attractiveness and of our beachfront. I do also want to point out that we will have a council meeting on December the 28th. I don't think anybody is going too far this holiday season, so we will be having that meeting on the 28th. And Councilman Cohen, and I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah, and to all of our residents that are celebrating currently. That being said, I will take a motion to adjourn. By Councilwoman Hosky, many others seconded it. Hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy your holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.